again, if you want to grow your business, one of the best ways to do it is to analyze your call data, because your call data tells you a lot.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines, to those that are driving those changes. I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me, the guy who reigns from, I think, still Florida at this point in the game, although I think that may be changing pretty soon. Where he reigns from doesn't change. Where he sleeps and stays, maybe. I don't know. But Dan, would you like to say good afternoon?
Good
our
morning,
sponsors,
good afternoon,
our guests, all that kind of, yeah. So let's just skip.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about sponsors. So if you're interested in marketing services for the pest or lawn industry, that would be Coalmarch. They are specifically designed for pest control as well as lawn care. And if you're looking to grow, Coalmarch can help you get there. Learn more at coalmarch.com. If you're interested in industry-specific insurance, which is workers' comp, auto, general liability. I think they also do EPLI and a few others. That would be PestSure. And it's a group of people from the industry who are all involved with it, and terrific company, been around for a while. And the third sponsor, which is we have somebody from this company, is our new sponsor for this year. It's Voice for Pest, which is a pest management industry leader in designing and implementing unparalleled voice solutions for pest control operators of any size from coast to coast. Learn more at voiceforpest.com/podcast. And if you're interested...
Hang on. Whoa. Don't forget that's /podcast, because we want the bean counters to make sure that they know that you came from us. So there you go.
/podcast. And even if you're not interested in their service, if you go on their page, we'll get credit for that.
And as a sponsor, I want to see activity. So let's do that. Yeah.
Activity. And if you're interested in joining one of our peer groups, take a listen to episode 136. David Billingsley, he's our facilitator, just having a tremendous run with this, with the peer groups. I think he's doing 2 just in the next week or 2, which is pretty cool. And so we've got multiple peer groups. And today we are happy to have Raymond Kidwell joining with us again. He is a 32-year veteran, but not a fixture.
Not a sink.
Industry. He corrected me when I said a fixture. He said, I am not a sink. And today he serves as Director of Business Development at Voice for Pest, one of our sponsors. And Donnie and the team at Triangle recently implemented a component of Voice for Pest, and we thought it would be pretty cool to get a field report. And I know I didn't ask this right before. Ray, do you have a camera, or did we not address this?
Yeah, I tried to turn it on, and it wouldn't let me before. There you
go.
There you go.
See?
There you go. Now you got
I got the
shirt.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, welcome, Raymond. Yeah.
Oh, it's good to be here. I'm glad to be on camera now. I didn't realize I wasn't. But it's great to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. And Dan, I have to say, I think you got through all of it. You obviously did not introduce PCO Bookkeepers or Turf Books, but I will give you a shameless plug. They do a great job. And of course, if you got any kind of accounting work that you need, or advice, or just general complaining, which I always say at the end of the podcast, Dan welcomes your call, and his staff will take care of you, no problem at all. So with that, let's jump into kind of what's going on. If you've listened to previous episodes, I'm sure you're probably aware, here at Triangle, we made a change in our phone system, and we did it for a couple of strategic purposes. I think a phone system in general, they're pretty ubiquitous these days. I don't know that, there's several phone systems that will work, and Raymond, don't cringe when I say that. But the more really the key part in my mind, when you're thinking about a phone system, is what kind of reporting is it going to give me, and how does it make our staff more efficient? And so we looked at several options for a number of years, we kind of rolled our own integration into our CRM. And we ended up landing on Voice for Pest. And so for us, we kind of see it as a strategic tool because there's a lot of cool features that they have with AI. Of course, there's an integration back into PestPack. It helps make our folks way more efficient in terms of notes and analyzing what's happening on calls. But the bigger part is the reporting. At least I should say the bigger part. That's the part that I'm super excited about. I'm sure if you ask anyone on our staff, there's probably specific pieces. If you've got someone who's on the phone all the time, they probably appreciate the summarized notes. If you're looking at a call center manager, I'm sure they love kind of the reporting and the capabilities there. But for me personally, as an owner, the thing I really care about is AI listening to all calls. The thing I care about is AI giving us good reporting. And there's a package that sits on top of that called X-Ray that does that as well. And so as far as where we're at in the process, so we are now on Voice for Pest. We have been, I want to say, maybe a month now, roughly at a month. Yeah, right, been on for a month. And we're still getting up to speed on the software. I will tell you, I was extremely nervous about doing this because I remember we did this in March. And for all of you out there who own lawn care companies, that was absolutely the dumbest, not the dumbest. I was just super concerned because it's right in the middle of our season. Our season here in North Carolina for lawn typically clicks off right around the end of February, and March is kind of our go time. And so I was very, very concerned about doing it at that time. Our staff, I should say my staff, came back and said, we're going to be just fine. And so I allowed it to go, and I'm happy to report we did not have any flubs, and we were not down, which I was super, super concerned about. And so the risk paid off. We were able to get the system swapped over from our previous phone system. And so far, it's been working quite well for us. We're still learning the software quite a bit, and we're still filling it full of data, which I'm excited about to allow AI to kind of help us with reporting from that. But Raymond, I mean, that's kind of my take from my view, and from your side. What do you have to add, or anything you think I missed as part of that? We're going to get into more about why I decided to use it and kind of what we're doing, and what the implementation, like what the process looks like, and then kind of where we're at from there. So let's start with your take on it so far.
Well, Donnie, if being an icon in the industry doesn't work out for you, we could always use you as a spokesperson. Gosh. You did a great job on that. So thank you. I mean, I think you probably
I'm actually a fixture, not an.
Yeah. Well, I said icon. I just figured a little nicer than a fixture. But anyway, no,
icons
I think
are what's on your shirt.
No, I think you summed it up. I mean, you did a good job of encapsulating it. But no, yeah, AI is the thing, right? Everybody's excited about AI. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. But we, in all sincerity, I think we just do it better. Because we have the relationship with the industry, we have the experience. We know what kind of know what the AI needs to do to really help companies like Triangle and other ones. So, but yeah, there was a lot of concern on both sides. I mean, we really never have issues with people, phone calls going down and stuff in the onboarding or going live process. But it is technology and things happen. So, but we wanted to make sure everything was good. I know we worked well. You guys, your team was fantastic to work with, and it all went smoothly. So, it's a little nerve-wracking, but also there is a lot of concern about making kind of these infrastructure changes, in the busy season. But the reality is, for the employees taking phone calls and stuff, it's not that big of a difference, right? They're still answering the phone and doing things. It's really the management and the company assimilating the new system and the new data. That's what takes a little while, right?
So what is it that I get when, like, you okay, we're going to put up AI, we're going to put in a new system. Why do I need to change my phone system in March? Like
Well,
there must have been a risk reward.
Because you get a lot of data. You get a lot of amazing data. Yeah, that's really what it's about.
And what is this data? Is it numerical data? Is it conversational data? Is it what?
How about yes? Yeah, I'll take a little bit, and then Raymond, you can obviously fill in the cracks here. But the things I really like is a good one that we were actually looking at this morning would be like customer flags, meaning that, the AI will actually look at interactions with customers and say, hey, look, this person is at high risk for canceling. And so it allows our staff to get in front of these customers and make phone calls or texts or emails to follow up to make sure that, it can legitimately look at these calls and look at what has come in and say, look, and flag those customers for us. And we were actually looking at a report this morning, and I would love to tell you that I'm happy to say, but it was 40 some customers. And so, this morning we were like, hey, we're going to reach out to these customers and we're going to make sure that obviously we don't want to cancel, but it's nice that there's kind of I don't want to call it Copilot because that's a Microsoft term, but it is kind of that, right? There's this all encompassing software that's kind of sitting on top of all the action and providing insights that are a lot faster than we could ever do it on our own. And so that's one reason.
How do you know that you're at risk for losing the customer? Is it?
It's in the algorithm. It's like
it
in
is.
what they're saying, like what the sentiment is of the call. I'm sure there's some keywords. There's probably an algorithm in there. But look, if you and I were talking to someone, I mean, I don't know. I ran a phone when we first started. I'm probably sure that you did as well, Dan, when you had your pest control company back in the Stone Ages. But nonetheless, you can tell, right? Customer calls in, they're super ticked off, and it's like, hey, we're going to make this right. We're going to get right. And so I don't know the specific algorithm as to how it matches the flag. All I know is that it was pretty good. I mean, when we're looking at the notes as to why it flagged that account. So that's okay. So first of all, that's just one piece, right? Another
Well,
one
that
is
seems like
that,
if it's just that and it works all the time, that's worth the price of admission.
well, that's one. The next one is there's this whole idea of coaching, right? And we're not quite there yet with AI, but this is kind of where it's going. And this is something that for me, I was super interested in, which is where, the idea that someone's talking real time or they finish up a call and there's this kind of, there's this sales. I mean, it's not a sales leader, it's AI. It says, hey, look, here's where we could have done better on that call. We could have asked for the sale. I mean, specific things like that can kind of coach our folks on the phone and give them real time feedback. Because listen, if there's one thing I know, and this is just a general business principle, is that people love real-time feedback. When they're playing the game and they know how they're doing, they tend to get better. And listen, that the timing of that feedback is way better than trying to talk to them a week later or 2 weeks later about the call. Call finishes up, they get the feedback right then, lesson learned, and they move on from there. So
Feedback is written? Is it verbal? Is it how
yeah. So Raymond, you want to jump in and start talking about this?
Yeah.
Because I think this is the cool part. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. So to answer your question, Dan, how does it know they're at risk? Well, that's where our AI being really good makes a difference, right? There's a lot of AI out there, and this isn't a shameless plug. It's a plug, but it's not a shameless plug. But the thing about our AI is the reason it's so good is because it was born and raised in this industry. Our AI engine is basically only used for lawn and pest and home services. So it understands the words people use when they call in to complain about pest control, buy pest control. So our AI can actually analyze it. And again, it doesn't listen, it analyzes a transcript, but it can analyze it. It understands based on what they're actually saying. This is the amazing thing of AI. It's actually basically understanding a conversation. And of course, it's all built to do that, right? But it knows what's happening. It understands it just like you understand a conversation. And then it gives you the results of it. But AI is the one employee that never goes to sleep, never complains, never calls in sick, right? Never wants you to take them out for dinner. That just always works. So the big benefit of that is if you think about like what you do with phone systems and the progression of pest control companies. A lot of times pest control companies start off small, right? They bring somebody into the office, like owner operator, and then they add an office person, or maybe they have an office person to start. And over time they get bigger, and eventually they get 2 or 3 people in the office. But there's nobody really professionally managing the calls, right? But there's so much benefit to that, and there's so much data there. So as they get bigger, then they go, oh gosh, I guess I need to maybe get to the point where I have a call center, and then I need to start listening to calls and manage. So there's not a lot of focus historically on making sure that people in the office, when there's two people in the office, most companies have experience with aren't overly worried about the 2 people, how many phone calls they take, what are they doing? But the bigger you get, and the more people you add, then that's where you really need to start analyzing, and that's where you do call monitoring, right? The supervisor will listen to phone calls and say, Dan, you did good on that one. Donnie, you could have tried this. But that doesn't happen very often because everybody's got other things to do and they get busy. And it's also a real tedious, unpleasant thing to do because you got to listen to the call and then you got to stop. It's just a lot. So AI does it for you. And the benefit of having AI do it, besides what you get, is the fact that it gets done. I mean, on every call gets analyzed. And that's to me, the biggest difference
So you
between
get a
AI.
report card, a written report card, or how does
You can get a written. So it depends on what you're talking about. So we're talking about the sales management, sales call scoring, employee management part of it. There's an email that goes out once a week. It can go to the employee, to the manager, both, right? And it like Donnie said, it kind of gives them an overview, compares how they did to their peers. No names. It doesn't say, Raymond, you did great, but Donnie did better. It just says how you did compared to the top 3 people and then everybody else. It tells them the things they do well. And then it actually tells them the things they don't do so well. And then the last part is it actually tells them, hey, this is what you can do to do better, right? And that all happens without a human being having to do anything. So there's that. But then we can also send out emails and alerts. Like we can send an email to a salesperson or a CSR who took 10 lead calls 3 days ago and hasn't called them back yet, because we know that they haven't been called back yet because we can see the outbound calls too.
It'll do the sales management.
Yes. So
The
basically,
administrative.
right. So
checking the
what
follow-up.
happens then? What happens is, what a lot of customers do is they'll send that email to the salesperson, and then the next day the same email goes to the manager. So if there's anything on it, the manager knows the salespeople didn't do it. Right. So they're basically spending their time actually managing. Which the other thing AI does that excites me with my background is we all spend a tremendous amount of time just getting the data and the information we need to manage, right? To make decisions, like Donnie's talking about. He's got his company, he's worried, he's got things he's got to focus on. Well, now the people can spend their time doing impactful things because they didn't have to spend a whole lot of time getting all the information they needed. And I see that as one of the biggest differences is now you're going to have managers that can actually spend their time managing instead of trying to get the information they need to do the managing part. That make sense?
Will it actually line up the calls that need to be made? So you said, okay, call comes in, you don't make the sale, so you decided that, okay, that guy gets called at 2-day intervals. Yep. You can check in and say, hey, who do I need to call today? Or is it not like that? Or
you can with the auto dialer, we have an auto dialer. So you can essentially load those calls up, and then the system will just call when the agent's available, right? So if you don't want to call somebody if there's nobody able to take the call. So you can automate the outbound call part, which is beneficial for 2 reasons. One is your employee doesn't spend 80% of their time leaving voicemails, because that's what happens when you make outbound calls. Right. And then the other thing is it's the dialer's doing it for you in a voice that's recorded, a human voice, so it sounds just like it could be anybody. The person listening doesn't know it was an auto call, and so it's getting through these calls very, very quickly. So it doesn't necessarily right now yet. And that's my answer when you ask about AI. It's not yet. It doesn't say, hey, these are the people, but it does a pretty good job of letting you know these are the people you need to call. And then it's just a matter of they go right into the dialer and dialer makes phone calls. And then the employee talk. It's a nice package.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I think we should talk through real quick just for our listeners. And, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but we really hadn't gotten into it, which is, if someone is looking to make a change, could you just walk through what that looks like what the process looks like, what's required, what the training is going to look like? I know for us, and I mean, it is a plug. I won't call it shameless. It's just our transition was pretty fast, meaning they had it one day and it was on, and then we were using it. And so it wasn't, for me, like the training was, if you have a call center that's pretty used to using a phone system, it's not rocket science, like kind of what you said. But can you just walk through the big components of an implementation and about what the timeline should be if someone's interested in doing something like this?
Absolutely. So the timeline is typically 4 to 6 weeks from the time you sign the paperwork to the time that the phone's ringing through us, typically. Now, again, if you're talking about a system with 2 phone extensions, that's going to be a little faster than one with 200. Right?
Mhm.
Generally 4 to 6 weeks. We can do them faster if we need to, and we have. So that's the time frame generally. But the way it works is it really starts with the porting, right? Because you have your numbers with another phone provider now. And so we need to get control of those numbers. They're always your numbers. We port them over to our system, but they're still your numbers. But that's the biggest thing, and I think that's the strikes the most fear into the hearts of people that are considering the transition, because everybody's very fearful that something's going to happen with their phone numbers, right?
Right.
And if your phone
Right.
number doesn't work, that's not good. Right? You're not getting any
Right.
phone calls. So
Right.
that's always the biggest thing. So I always like to tell people this is what we do all day, every day, but it starts with porting. Typically, what happens is our project manager will send out an email with a link where the person can download the letter of authorizations they have to sign. It gives us permission to move the numbers to our system. And then you have to upload, like, usually the most recent copy of your phone bill. And then once we get the porting document, that's when the fun starts. That's when we schedule the first initial meeting, what we call a PII, preliminary installation interview. And that's where basically the customer and us, we sit, and that's where we create the blueprint for what do you want to happen? When somebody calls you and it's a customer call, what do you want to happen to that? Oh, we want them to sit in the queue for 90 seconds and then and that's kind of how it all happens. Once that starts, and that's usually within a few days after you get everything signed, but it happens as soon as we get the paperwork we need from the customer. So if the customer takes 2 weeks to get it, it's going to be 2 weeks before the project starts, right? So assuming we get it promptly, which we usually do. So after that, then it starts getting built. Then the installer works with the customer on various things, the training, setting up the extensions, things like that. Now, we have two levels of solution. We have what we call our UC system, which is unified communication. It handles voice calls. It does have texting connected to it as well. But then we have our contact center solution, and that handles everything, voice, text, chat, email, all of it. So that system, there's a little bit more to it. So if we're talking about just a standard phone system, somebody's got a few extensions, they're not trying to handle multi-channel and all this stuff. That's a whole different level. It's much simpler, a lot less to do. On the contact center side, though, you do have, we got the integration piece we got to do. Then we got to do the contact center training and the supervisors. So it's a little more in depth. But once the process starts, it's pretty smooth. We work with you guys. We set up the training. All the training's scheduled. If you order phones through us, we ship them out ready to go. You just plug them in, right? And so that's typically how it goes. And it's kind of back and forth throughout the time. You have the dedicated installer. You also have a dedicated customer success person. So you always have somebody that you can go to and say, hey, I have a question about this, or what's going on with that. And the best part of that customer success position is it's not me. It's the best part of the whole thing. It's not me, right? Because it was me for a long time. But anyway, so and then sometimes things happen. You might hit a roadblock. You might have a question. You always have somebody there that's kind of in between you and the installer and stuff to help you if you need help with anything. So
for a long time, Voice for Pest was a phone system, and that you would, hook up and use to run your company. And then they added this AI component. Now, there's an additional charge, and I don't want to really get into that. What I want to know is, what's the ideal size of a company to, like if I have a one-man operation, would that make sense to do that? Maybe his wife or somebody is answering the phone. Does it make sense to do that, or do I need, 5 technicians, or
no,
what's
I mean,
the right size?
there is no right. I mean, one is the right size, one and up, right? Because it again, if you want to grow your business, one of the best ways to do it is to analyze your call data, because your call data tells you a lot. Now, if you're single operator, you got your wife in the office part-time and you're getting 10 phone calls a day, there's not that much to analyze, right? But when I always say get set up right away. I used to, I may have mentioned this last time I was here, but Lloyd Smigel was what's the consultant industry, right? Many years. He's deceased now, unfortunately, but he always said, the first, no matter how big you are, your first day in business, you should have a procedures manual. You should have a company built, even if you don't have any employees. and then you grow into that company. What a lot of pest control operators do, because they start off and they're just building their business, and then at some point they go, oh, geez, I got to kind of build a company here. I got to have rules, and I got to have positions, and I got to do that. So the sooner you do that, the better. So the best thing to do is get your phone system set up and get it going from day one. And that way, as you continue to grow and develop, and you want to start taking advantage of some of these things like AI analysis and things, it's already there, right? And you don't necessarily have to pay for everything. You could start off with a smaller approach, but we have customers with one person in the office using our AI summary notes, and they love them because the AI summary note is AI analyzing the call, creates a summary, and then we push it into the customer's account in the CRM. So the employee doesn't have to. A lot of times employees don't. And sometimes when they do, they don't give you the full picture, right? And now what we're doing, also, go ahead.
Yeah. Are the fees based off a number of users, or how does that work?
Well, there's a couple ways. It's not for a phone system, yes. Like for the system itself, it's a monthly subscription per extension, right? So if you have 5 people, you're going to be paying, it starts at $29.95 a month. You're going to be paying $29.95 a month per person for 5 people. Plus, there's some other things. But it goes up from there. When you get to the multi-channel contact center level, like the Triangle's at, they're paying a little bit more, but they've also got a much higher level of system. Yeah.
Okay, Donnie can afford it. He's
yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, for sure, for sure. I was gonna make a joke, but I'll let you off the hook, Dan.
Thanks, man.
So let's talk a little bit about you mentioned something there. You guys, obviously, we really like the integration with the notes and with, we're using WorkWave Pest Pack. It's no secret here on the podcast. Folks know I'm running Pest Pack. For me, like, what is that? I mean, I know what it is, but just for our listeners,
Sure.
How difficult is it to do that with if someone's running Pest Pack or they're running routes or whatever? What do you guys integrate with, and how difficult is that to do?
Well, we integrate with just about every CRM pest control companies and lawn care companies use, and I hate to try to name them because I always forget somebody. But we're adding Evolve is almost done. But yeah, we've got integrations with like you said, Field Routes, PetStack, RioStack, Aspire, about 10 or 12 of them. And the kind of the general integration is the same. We have the ability to identify whether somebody calls you, when somebody calls you, identify whether they're a customer or not before the phone rings, which allows our customer then to decide what they want to do. You can handle those calls differently, right? If I know this is a customer calling me, maybe they don't need to hear customers press 1, whatever, press 2, because you can't control what they press. So we can just push them right through. Or you can push them through to a customer-specific auto attendant, right? It's a customer, then maybe the choice is press 1 for billing, press 2 for scheduling. If it's not a customer, then you can treat it differently. You can send those calls to your top selling people over the phone. So you're sending the lead calls to the people that are going to hopefully sell the most, right? You can have less hold time. We can do so all that kind of stuff. So that's the first one. We call that intelligent call routing. Then we have a screen pop, and the customer calls in, and when you answer, your employee answers, their account pops up, and it has all the information. It saves a lot of time. It's more efficient. They're right where they need to be, and the customer doesn't have to sit there and give out all their information every time, right? It gives them a warm, fuzzy feeling when you can say, "Oh, is this Mr. Kidwell at Wilson Street?" Yes, it is. So there's that benefit, and you
5
also
years ago that was creepy. Now it's cool.
Yeah. Now it's cool. Yeah. You do get the same thing with the prospect, not a customer. You still get a screen pop, right? And then we have click to call. So if your employees are calling customers, instead of having to go to the phone system dialer or pick up a phone, you just click the phone number right there in the CRM, and it just calls, right? So again, they're staying in that one window, so they're more efficient. And then the last piece of the kind of the standard integration is the auto note, which we capture the call data. The basic note that comes with every integration is we wrap the call recording. At the end of every call, right in the customer's account, we push in we document the call, the date, the time, who called, who answered, and then there's a link to the call recording you can listen to. But now with AI, we've added. In the notes now, you can see whether the customer was unhappy or happy the last time you spoke to them. If they were a retention risk, like Donnie was talking about, it will tell you that, and it will tell you specifically why. It'll say retention risk, service, retention risk, billing, whatever, right? You get the full transcript, you get the summary, and we're pushing more and more in, and we're doing more and more. So that's you're getting all of that now. So all of our integrations have those features available, and they work really well, and it's not hard to get set up at all. I mean, it's depending on the software. Some of them, like, Some of the CRMs, you have to have a license through them, so that our mutual customer has to get a license to them. Most of them, though, all we really need is like an API key, and it's part of what we do. It's painless, and then generally speaking, we get it up and running pretty quickly. Sometimes there's an API, sometimes with API keys it can be a challenge, especially if you have multiple branches. But it's part of the install, and it goes pretty well, and it works really well for the most part.
So we're getting close to coming to the end here, and I want to spend some time on this because I think it's really
Already?
cool. I know. I want to talk a little bit about X-ray. Can
Okay.
you just talk through, because this is the part that excites me the most. Now, obviously, I'm the owner. This is what I want to look at. Our folks in the call center, they would probably have different things that they're excited about. But for me, and I think for a lot of folks that are listening to this podcast, it's what can I get out of it? And we've talked about a lot of the features that X-ray has, but can you just briefly go through what X-ray is, what you can get out of it, and how it can help gain more control, more visibility as to what's going on with your call
Sure.
center and how to leverage that data?
Yeah. Okay. So X-ray, we have three like AI components really. We have our X-ray dashboard, we have our AI notes, and then we have AI noise cancellation, which basically just silences every sound out on the phone call outside of the two people talking. So X-ray is our AI platform, our dashboard. That is from the genesis of all of our AI comes from X-ray, right? And what X-ray is it's a AI engine within a large language model, like we said, that specifically lives in this industry. Every single call is recorded. Then the recording is then transcribed, and then X-ray, the AI engine, basically reads the transcription and analyzes it. And from there, it takes all this data. Now, the thing to remember is that the data that AI creates, it's created based on what human beings are telling it to do, right? So the value of your AI, the quality of it, is very much dependent on the AI engine, but also the person that's telling it what to do, right? So we just know what to tell it. So we get really good stuff, right? So, and then the biggest difference is it goes into the CRM. So what X-ray does then is analyzes every call, and it's basically broken into buckets: inbound calls, outbound calls, customer calls, and then there's call scoring, and then we can do from there we can kind of drill it down and spread it out more. So every inbound call, inbound leads, outbound leads, customer calls. Sorry, every inbound lead that comes in, X-ray can tell you what service they were calling you to buy, why they didn't buy it, were they happy or unhappy, stuff like that. Every single and you can take that data and just do so much more with it. And it does that for every type of call. It does it for outbound lead calls, customer calls. X-ray can tell you if the customer was happy or not. We can send you an email or a text saying, "Hey, that call that just ended, not good." On the lead side, we can tell you if you got leads that were never put in your CRM. Because we can look into CRM and we can use X-ray to do that. So X-ray really creates everything, but it's got these different buckets, different windows, inbound leads, outbound leads, customer calls. It analyzes them and it gives you the ability to really find out anything you want about that call. You can go in and say, I want to see all the calls that Raymond handled that were customer calls, and the customers asked about billing, and you can drill all the way down, right? So you can essentially find out anything you want to know about every single call. And there's so much valuable data in there. And like Donnie, your X-ray dashboard, I saw it last week when I was there. We've done some good custom work there, and you guys have some really nice dashboards set up to analyze very specifically, like, okay, these are inbound leads, but what you guys do lawn and pest, right? So you want to look at those differently, right? They're different businesses, customers behave differently. So you can get all of this data for lawn and all this data for pest, and you can get it for everything together. So that's kind of what X-ray does. And it's just, and the big difference, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like there's a lot of AI out there. And all I ask is if somebody's looking to start using a phone system with AI, just take a look at ours. Because once you see what ours is, you'll see the difference. I mean, it really does make a difference.
You explained it really nicely. And I think what I'm hearing is you can also take the call and attach it to the customer in notes or something like an
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely,
here's my question. That sounds like a lot of space. And does it get to a point where your CRM company, Workwave or field routes or whatever, it says, whoa, you're using way too much space, and
It's not an exact transcript. It's a summary.
Well, the other thing is
it's not the call itself. It's just notes.
So let me explain to you how it works. That's a very good question, and I get a really good answer for you. So basically, you're absolutely right. The CRMs don't want a bunch of stuff in their account. Right. So what we do is, like Donnie said, the only thing that goes into the CRM, into the notes, is a 2-sentence summary of the call, right? And then the details of the call, who called, whatever. There's a link in there. When you click the link, that's taking you to our server, and that's where everything is.
Gotcha. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Right. So, and so you have all the you lose the call recording stuff, after a year, but you have everything else. You still have a transcript. You have everything else, and the call recording is just because that is a space issue. When you got a bigger company, 1,000 calls every couple of days. So we after about a year, actually it's 18 months now. We moved it 18 months. So all the call recordings stay in the CRMs for 18 months. But now with AI and the transcript and the summary, the call recordings are less valuable, because who wants to sit there and listen to a phone call when you can just read the transcript or read the summary. So,
or have AI summarize it for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And not that I would ever do that, but you could.
Yeah, well, and we're looking, and we also do that with text. We can already push text into the CRMs as well, so they can get all their phone calls and their text. We're getting very close to using AI to analyze text conversations between customers and pest control companies, and voicemails. Even though a lot of those are already kind of a summary, right? A lot of times somebody leaves a voicemail. It's, hey, it's Raymond, call me back. I'm calling about my bill. Very short, brief conversation. But ideally, if you think about it, wouldn't it be wonderful to have every communication with the customer right there in the account where the customer lives in your company, and everybody that you want to have access to has access to it, and you're not having to bounce around trying to figure out what happened on an email versus a phone call versus a text. And that's kind of where we're going. We're almost there.
It's true omni-channel, and it's the golden, to me, it's the holy grail of like a customer only has to tell you something once and then everyone knows it, which is what I really want to get to. So, Raymond, well, listen, this has been fantastic. Dan, anything to add or any questions?
No, it sounds pretty neat. It's, I actually was in on a peer group meeting a few months ago where some of the guys were demoing it, and looked really, really cool. So
I'll do a demo for you, Dan. Let me know anytime. I'll do a demo for you.
And I think, we'll have you back once we are kind of fully up and running here.
Okay, good.
Because I think, our dashboards and kind of the way it's all work, it's really cool. And I think we should probably share it with the audience, like what can be done as far as reporting. And again, we're still filling it full of data, so we got to have a little bit more burn time. But I think after June, probably July timeframe, we should have more than enough data to kind of start showing off some of that. So
that would be cool. And put it up on YouTube and see the
just to kind of talk it through. So Raymond, really appreciate you coming on board and talking with us. And Dan, obviously, I always appreciate spending time with Dan most of the time. But just remember, all the resources and topics that we talked about today are available on the podcast website. Just head over to pmpindustryinsider.com. Take a look under show notes. And we always appreciate any ratings and reviews that you have. So if you consume us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever it is, we always appreciate those positive feedback. And if you have questions, complaints, or really just want to complain in general, we always ask that you pass that to Dan. He very much enjoys those types of calls. And with that, we're going to sign off. We'll see you all next time. Take care now.
/podcast. Bye, guys.
Got it.